Cool. So I'm going to talk to you this morning broadly about climate change, the role that brands and agencies have to play in this, and kind of doing that through the lens of people such as Greta Thunberg, pictured on the screen behind you. It's become a bit of a lightning rod for the whole conversation recently. Climate change and the discussion of it obviously didn't begin with her, but some of the language that she's using and the way that she is mobilizing people is doing it in a way that's making it feel more immediate than ever before. Her words, "I want you to panic," which she said at Davos to a collection of world leaders, speak of the immediacy and the urgency with which people are now all over the world beginning to mobilize and take action. We've seen this right on our doorsteps just down the road. And I had a moment last week when I was walking to work, and I'm sure we all walked past the protesters, where I was weaving in and out of hammocks and vegan curries, and I saw an old lady getting carried into a police van. And I kind of had a bit of a moment where I thought, like, what am I personally doing as part of this to help? What is my role in this conversation, both as an individual and as a professional within the marketing industry? So that's what got me thinking. Activism has many forms. It's not just about kind of taking to the streets and waving banners. We all have skills and we all have talents we can bring to the table. So I wondered, what am I? And as in any occasion where I have lots of questions that quickly kind of pop into my head, I go straight to Google. And through Google, I found a piece of quite weighty ad scholarship. Yes, that's a thing. From some professors of advertising, that's a thing too. And it was called Advertising Leadership and Climate Change: The Efficacy of Industry Professionals to Address Climate Issues. And basically, what I'm going to do in this talk is just download what I learned from that in the hopes that it might provide some interesting food for thought. So the first thing that stuck out to me from reading it was whether as an agency or as a brand, you have a choice in how you approach climate change. You can either be a part of the problem, and I think part of it is acknowledging that we are tied to consumer culture almost inseparably. We sell products, we promote them, we promote ideas, but if we're not doing this in a way that's responsible, if we're not doing it in a way that is conscientious, especially when working with industries like agriculture, fast fashion, oil and gas, automotive, we're being part of the problem. On the other hand, and I'm much more of an optimist, we can be part of a solution. We as an industry and brands have an amazing set of skills that leads us on to Liam Neeson. And this is a quote, not from Liam Neeson, but from Ban Ki-moon, that I think kind of summarizes really well what we have to offer as an industry. We're storytellers, we're creative, we're ingenious, we innovate, we persuade. And what Ban Ki-moon, the former UN Secretary General, was basically imploring the industry to do at Cannes was to make it our own story. So take it on as a responsibility of our own. And I think as an industry and brands, we have a much more privileged position than we realize. I think the protesters that we saw down the road would absolutely kill to sit at the tables that we sit at, have the ear of the brands that we do, and as an industry be able to influence change on a global level through our creativity, through our thinking, and through all the amazing things that we do in this office and that many offices do around the world. So there were three, sorry, I couldn't see the one there, I thought that was about to pop up. There were three recommendations that came off the back of this paper that I read. And I'm basically going to talk you through these now. The first of which was social justice is a principle, not just an insight. And what this means is that when we're thinking about campaigns as an industry and when brands want to launch a product, it's not a question of saying, okay, we know millennials are into climate change, or we know young people like activism, so we should do X. That's being reactive and that's following, and that is not the depth to which, as people, we can enact serious change. What we should be doing is having in front of our head a principle that we take out to people and figure out ways that we can convey that message, whether they're old, young, rich, or whoever. So carrying that as a principle, an example of this is an agency in LA called 72 and Sunny. They've introduced something called brand citizenship. Brand citizenship to them is what brutal simplicity is to Saatchi. It's basically a principle that is baked into every single strategic brief that they ever give out, no matter what the client, no matter what the piece of work. And it says that the work we are doing has to, at the bottom line, have a positive impact on the world through society, through social justice, social mobility, whatever that may be. So that's from an agency perspective, baking that into our creative culture and how we work things is one way of doing it. But for a brand, we talk a lot at the time about having a purpose-led brand. This is absolutely true in the conversation around climate change. I have to go into a really good example of the amazing things that can happen when you really tie yourself to the mast of one core principle and you live and activate beyond that. And when you get the basis right and you believe in it and you onboard your people so they feel it too, amazing campaigns kind of come out organically because of your way of thinking. Don't Buy This Jacket is a great example of that, when they essentially went out to market and said, we don't want you to buy any more clothes unless you need them. And they substantiated that claim by actually going around the world, various cities, and repairing people's clothes, whether they belong to Patagonia or not, and saying, okay, quality means they should last, but if it doesn't, we will repair it so we don't need to buy more. The second teaching was educate, then innovate. So we have a big responsibility when we're working with brands as an industry to know what we're talking about, particularly in the context of climate change and particularly in the context of how the work we are producing has an impact in the world around us. If we don't know the impact of the latest product drop we're doing, the latest ad campaign, who that might affect, the materials that go into making it, or the people it might influence, then we're not doing our job properly. So we have a responsibility as brands and agencies to educate ourselves on what we're doing and be more socially aware. And we can do this in two ways, either by training ourselves. So there are plenty of courses, there's plenty of literature where we can upskill this department, or we can recruit. Again, talking about 72 and Sunny, Jim Moriarty was brought in as a director of brand citizenship, and he sits on the board there. Essentially, his role is to be a guardian of the agency's values to ensure that things like brand citizenship, which I mentioned before, are implemented at every stage throughout the process. We're seeing a lot of these roles pop up in various industries. Patagonia has a director of environmental strategy, and I think it's a trend that we're going to see a lot more of. So making sure we know what we're talking about, the impact that what we do have, so we can go forward with campaigns and ideas that we really believe in and know are having a positive impact. And finally, to borrow some words from Millicent Fawcett, courage calls to courage. And what I mean by this is whether you're a brand or an agency, having a stance, having an opinion, being able to see, oh, I know what you think about this issue is a massive step in the right direction. And when I say courage calls to courage, there are briefs out there that me personally, I dream of working on. It's things like this where you can just see the impact it has on people's lives. You can see the good it does. And I think if we want to invite this kind of brief in, we need to be signaling this is the kind of work we can produce and this is the style of work. We're already doing it, which is the really great news. And I think we can be doing more to say, this is the kind of work we want, this is the kind of client we want, et cetera, et cetera. Our industry talks a lot about being fearless. I think now is the time to really embody that word. So to close, Greta Thunberg wants you to panic. I think I want you to be optimistic, and that's not because this is an easy thing to solve. That's not because it can be done overnight, or that's not because one poster is going to change the world, or one ad is going to solve climate change. But if you are hoping to affect climate change in a positive way, I genuinely believe that there are a few better places that you could be in the world of advertising, marketing, and communications, for all the reasons that I've just mentioned, because of our creativity and the privileged position we hold in relation to the people we work with and the ideas we can share. Thank you. Next.